Good evening and welcome to African Voices platform. My name is Chiwa Chihana, your host tonight. I'll be joined by Bailo Jalo, my co-host. We head off to Zimbabwe tonight. Zimbabwe will be deciding in an election who their next president is going to be in 2023, March the 26th. Our guest tonight is Dr. Nkululeko Sibanda, who is the MDC Alliance spokesperson. Good evening, Bailo, and good evening, Dr. Sibanda.
Good evening, Chiwa. Good evening, Bailo.
It's really lovely to have you back on the show, Dr. Sibanda. It's been a while, so welcome back home.
Thank you very much. It sure feels like home.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Sibanda, you're on the other side of the table, so you're going to have to take some tough questions tonight. The very first one is it MDC Alliance, MDCT? We are confused. What is happening?
The underlying fact is that we are not working in a democracy, we're working in a dictatorship. And because we're working in a dictatorship, it is not even possible to decide what the name of your political party would be without the dictatorship deciding that they do not want you to have that name and playing all kinds of chicanery to put spanners in the works. So the leadership of the party has not changed its positions or announced any intention to do so or not to do so. The leadership of the party maintains its position, and what the people already know, the people of Zimbabwe, is what we already know. And I think that we should follow that cue. And as a people, we are willing to follow the leadership wherever it goes, as it does what is necessary and appropriate given the circumstances. I know that for most people, this is not something easy to imagine, but the fact of the matter is that if you are in Zimbabwe, you cannot decide the name of your organization. The government is interested in that. It will find ways to abuse the law in order to make sure that you can't choose your name. And the reason here is that we have used the name MDC Alliance in the 2018 elections, and the government thinks that the name is so popular and they would like to dilute the popularity of the movement, and by that they want to take our brand name away. And that's where we are. And I know that when we start talking brands and so forth, people begin to understand why the government, the regime is taking that name away. But that's where we are today. But let me also just say the 26th of March date of an election is for 2022, where we have by-elections to replace elected members who were removed from either local government offices or national parliament by the regime when it was at its game of trying to weaken President Nelson Chamisa's Movement for Democratic Change Alliance.
Right. So we have by-elections coming up in the next 2 months, you're saying?
2 months, yes. But we do have national elections in 2023. So your program today could not have come at a better moment, because what we're also having is that we have a documentary, a film, if you like, or a movie, if you like, which is premiering in the UK on the 14th of February. It's been nominated for the Oscars, the 94th Oscars, that will be announced on the 22nd of February. We are in the top 10. So
what's the context of the film, just for clarity, so we know how relevant it is to this particular discussion?
It's the elections of 2018. So if people want to understand what happened here in 2018, go watch The President. It's a great movie that's already won several awards in Europe, in America, and in South Africa. It's premiering in Europe this week, but this coming week on the 14th. We already had a successful premiere in the United States and in Norway. And it's also coming to your television screens, I think, fairly soon.
Brilliant, thank you. That's useful to know, and we definitely have a massive diaspora from Zimbabwe here in the United Kingdom. Do you know whether there's any room for what are the legalities of Zimbabweans in diaspora actually voting, participating in elections?
Zimbabweans that are in the diaspora cannot vote because obviously we have a dictatorial regime that does not trust its citizens. especially those that have experienced democracy and understand how things work and would vote in a particular way. The government can easily predict that most Zimbabweans in the diaspora would be voting for another political party other than the ruling ZANU-PF of Mnangagwa. And then President Chamisa is certainly very popular. And in fact, he has led a movement that is not centered on him. President Chamisa has led a movement that is centered on the people of Zimbabwe, that is owned by the people of Zimbabwe. And for that reason, the regime feels that there is no contest between them and President Chamisa in any plebiscite, especially where the diaspora vote is concerned. And the people in Zimbabwe, middle class, upper class, working class, everybody is pretty much sure that they want to vote for President Chamisa. I've been carrying out some research. I will not preempt the results, but I will tell you that it's difficult for me at the moment to understand where ZANU-PF gets any votes, where it would get even just 5% of the electorate if at all Zimbabwe had a free, fair and credible election. There is no possibility.
When you talk about President Chamisa's MDC Alliance, President Chamisa's popularity in Zimbabwe and with the electorate, we still have to come back to the problem of the brand name. I appreciate that MDC in itself is a known name, but then you've also got factions within Zimbabwe. Just yesterday, you had a faction of Zimbabwe declaring that name was legally theirs for these upcoming elections. How are you going to manage that, and how do you ensure that the vote is not split as MDC Alliance or ABCD?
Thank you for asking that question, Chiwe. I will put that into context a little bit. So what is happening here is that you have the Movement for Democratic Change that beat Emmerson Mnangagwa in the 2018 elections and won 28 out of 32 local government elections in the country. And then Mnangagwa surviving there by rigging and killing people on the 1st of August 2018, shooting people right on the streets of Harare. You're talking, you're making reference here to movie style or even a video game style urban warfare, where the military was moving street to street, taking aim and shooting at retreating citizens, killing them on spot with live ammunition. So what this regime has done is that after 2018, they realized that given the demographics of the country and the real results that they had seen, where President Chamisa had won 2.6 million votes, and Mnangagwa had just over a million votes. They realized that there is no possibility that Mnangagwa would then win the 2023 upcoming election. And they decided that the best way, their best foot forward was to make sure that he did not have any opposition. So they would, in fact, destroy the movement.
Dr. Sibanda, I mean, 50.8 versus 44.3% of the vote win for Mnangagwa in the last election is indisputable. That was quite a gap. So what are you saying about that win, that where are you getting your numbers from? The official results are that 50.8%.
Getting our numbers from the Zimbabwe Election Commission's own servers that were able to kind of like get or even from our own tabulation of a parallel process of the vote. Then we do know that the results that were then announced by the Zimbabwe Election Commission were not credible, they were not true, they were false. That was the rigging. So the figures you're making reference to are the figures given to us, given to the world by the junta after it had lost the elections. The fact that our position is the true position is corroborated by the fact that we are the only side in this debate that was able to give a single number and not change it. Look, the Zimbabwe Election Commission produced 3 different numbers by which Mnangagwa won. Each time they produced a number, the first time they found that there were errors in it, so they had to go back and correct the chicanery that they were doing, and then they did it again the next day, and they did it again the third day, and then we asked them in court. We asked the Chief Justice, so if you're going to say Mnangagwa won this election, what figure are you going to say he won the election by? And the Chief Justice, amazingly, said that numbers don't matter. What matters is that the Zimbabwe Election Commission had declared a winner. It doesn't matter by how much, simply because the Zimbabwean Election Commission, the election authority, did not have a specific number by which it would say Mnangagwa won the election. What they could rely on legally was that a declaration had been made and that the country had to rely on the declaration, because in their reasoning, only the Zimbabwe Election Commission could announce a winner, and they didn't need to give you any numbers to announce a winner. They just needed to tell you that this is the winner.
In that case then, Dr. Sibanda, you're going into a by-election this year with the same judicial system, with the same electoral commission, with the same institutions, with the same ruling party in power, and you're going into the presidential elections next year with the same institutions in place. What is the MDC's strategy, given that you're already having internal problems yourselves? How do you mitigate this?
Question, Chiwe. What is happening is that the party, in fact, put out an official position last week as soon as the dates were announced by Mnangagwa, the rigged dates themselves. The party said that what was important and what was a priority was to deal with the question of reforms in the electoral system. And that is where the party stands. I cannot say in any way whether the party is contesting these elections or not, or say anything else other than what the party spokesperson has said, because that is not within my purview. I have no authority or knowledge of that side of things. So we
Okay, in that case, can I ask you, being the president's spokesperson, what is the president saying as opposed to the party spokesperson? So I'm speaking to you now.
Well, if it's about the party position gets taken, and the president is bound by that because he is part of the decision-making process. And as it stands, what has been announced is that the party would like to see a rush in addressing questions relating to electoral reforms. And I think that is a great position. That is what everybody would want. We do not want a disputed election again in this country. It is detrimental to our economy. It is detrimental to our political progression in terms of democratizing our state and the nation. So I think that the party is staying true to its values. It's demanding a democratic electoral condition, and it has a blueprint that it has given to the government called PRIZE, which stipulates the number of reforms that need to be taken.
So just north of Zimbabwe then, Dr. Sibanda, you've got Zambia that recently had President Hakainde Hichilema elected. Very similar stories, I guess, with President Nelson Chamisa. Any inspirations, any learnings, and where do we go from here? As the SADC region, really, where such similar challenges are being faced?
Look, a great question. President Hichilema is an inspiration not just to the people that are active politically in Zimbabwe. He's an inspiration to a lot of young people in our country. He's an inspiration to older people in our country in terms of how he was able to deal with the dictatorship and deal a decisive blow. And now he has progressed the ideas of democracy and economic prudency as he begins to manage the Zambian economy. And I can tell you what's going on right now, when Zimbabweans in the diaspora need to hear this. A lot of Zimbabweans are taking great example from President Hakainde Hichilema, which is, and we call him HH here, a very endearing name, because what people are doing now is that they're going door by door canvassing. They're getting out every young person. If you're born after 2000, we call them Mama 2000 here. If you're born after 2000, these young people are coming out and are saying, this time it's our election, this time it's our decision, this time we are taking back our country and we are bringing it back to the fold of developing nations. Zambia is right now a shining beacon on the hill for democratic transformation in this country. And dare I mention that President HH is a very good friend of President President Nelson Chamisa, and that President Chamisa takes a lot of good advice from President HH. And we think that both Zambia is moving forward. Zimbabwe is right on its heels, following very soon, as 2023 is going to be extremely decisive and will bring us to some forward Zambia.
That's very insightful. Now, I want to take you back to the elections where Mnangagwa had the military deployed in the streets of Zimbabwe. And in the context of the young people that are being encouraged to vote in a very similar way, the Zambian youth came out and voted in their numbers. What do you do to prevent intimidation of young people, especially in a place where the military is used so liberally?
I think that what I have seen in my recent excursions into the communities is that young people aren't intimidated at all. It is rather the older generations that are easily intimidated. I'm at 2000, just don't care. They just want to get things done. They're moving forward. So I think that we will see them do what they ought to do without fearing anything. And besides, what is important here, the surest way to fight a dictatorship is not to challenge it into a street fight. And now young people aren't challenging the dictatorship into a street fight. They are saying that every one of us is going out and is going to cast that ballot. Every one of us is going to register to vote. And there is the secret. That is the way to fight a dictatorship. Because when we all vote, when everybody votes, they will not have the space to rig, because rigging becomes so hard. You will have hit the ceiling, and therefore they will have no room to play around with the figures. But also, what the young people are doing is that they're talking to each other about how they're going to vote. They're talking to each other even after voting about who they voted for. There is a method that's exciting if you're right here on the ground that our young people are employing, that will ensure that our vote is protected. And there's nothing stronger than even the guns and the bullets and the armored cars rolling into the streets.
Oh, okay, yeah, I hear that. But what is it they are voting for now? What is the MDC alliance under President Nelson Chamisa offering the people of Zimbabwe tangibly in relation to what President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his ZANU-PF are offering the people of Zimbabwe?
Thank you very much. Emmerson Mnangagwa is offering nothing. Emmerson Mnangagwa is offering more of the same. He's offering deception. They're offering lies. They're offering a dead economy.
On the policy front, I would really want to understand on the policy front what you're challenging then. When you say deception, what is that? What does that look like?
Look, these guys are born out of deception. They carried out a military coup and they named it a coup that is not a coup. And everybody knows now that it was a military coup. These guys are born out of deception. They said they would stop corruption. When Mugabe, before he left office, called them out and said they had stolen 15 billion of United States dollars that belong to the nation, they said no, that wasn't the case, and they went right back in, and they more than 5 billion was missing from state coffers within their first 4 months after the coup. So we can see what's going on right there. These guys were deceiving everybody in order to get in. When these guys carried out the coup, they get the impression that they would work towards unifying our country, but immediately after they finished the coup, they said, no, the coup was only a ZANU-PF project.
Okay, so I'll ask you again, Dr. Sibanda, what is the MDC alliance offering the people of Zimbabwe? What are people going to be voting for?
Well, Chiwa, you had said that I must make a contrast between between ZANU-PF and the MDC, but I see now that you're moving towards the MDC, which is great because that is exactly where I know the most, rather than what ZANU-PF does not do. I will tell you that President Chamisa is offering a modernized country, a country that's built on technology and science. President Chamisa is saying when he comes into office, look at what President Biden is doing in America, building back America street by street, road by road, highway by highway, railway by railway, and putting down internet fibers across the country. This is what President Chamisa is saying. President Chamisa is saying we want great roads. We want spaghetti roads, he calls them. A fantastic idea that will create millions upon millions of great jobs.
So let's move out a little bit and just look at the region, the SADC region at present. We are having politics of a nature that is feeling very uncomfortable for most people from that region, where Zimbabweans, I think, are being ousted, if you will. For example, in South Africa, quite recently, we have seen that the Zambian government has also taken a stance on that. I want to get your sense of what exactly is going on and what the solutions are to this problem that's imploding right in our faces in the SADC region.
Look, it is difficult, and this is what we said in 2018, and we said this to a lot of the leaders in the region, that regional stability will depend on whether every country in the region is stable politically, economically, and socially. And we warned that Zimbabwe was not stable in all those spheres of life. And that for as long as Zimbabwe was not stable, Zimbabweans will be the problem of the region. Zimbabweans will be the children of our shared common heritage and shared common physical spaces. And that it would then be difficult for our neighbors to right now throw in the gallant at the Zimbabwean citizens who warned them in 2018 when they allowed Mnangagwa to roll in the armored cars onto our streets in 2018 and in 2019 to kill citizens that were demanding a government that's elected by the people for the people. Let me say something that a lot of people know, Chiwa, which is that you cannot build a successful economy if the government that economy is not democratically elected. There is a very strong correlation between a democratic government and a progressing economy that can actually take care of its citizens. And that is the problem we have. Since you do not have a legitimate government in Zimbabwe that the SADC region must be working towards at all times, you're not going to have a sustainable economy. And for as long as the Zimbabwean economy is in its ICU, in its intensive care unit, you're going to have the SADC economy suffering as well. This is the time for our SADC friends and neighbors to say, the problem in Zimbabwe is that of governance. President Chamisa has been singing this song to the SADC region, and we hope that they will now begin to have more faith in President Chamisa, for he has told them beforehand what would happen to the Zimbabwean economy, and in fact predicted that Zimbabweans would be suffering and would be seen across the region trying to build a basis for their families. And you can see what Zimbabweans are doing across the region. They're going in and doing, really in some ways you could say that it's not fair that the region would blame mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters just trying to make a living. They should deal with the rogue regime that's in Harare right now.
So on that score, Dr. Sibanda, today the SADC region heads of state summit is taking place in Malawi. What would you hope would be... say today the SADC heads of state summit is taking place in Malawi as you and I are speaking. What would you hope that President, the actual heads of state would be tabling in relation to the situation in Zimbabwe that the brothers and sisters of that region are actually facing at present? And do you see President Emerson Mnangagwa speaking for the people that are in diaspora that are being are suffering these challenges at present?
Well, I don't see him doing that. Thank you for the question, Chiwe. I don't see him talking on behalf of the people. He just doesn't know how to do that. Although, of course, it's not him who's gone to Lilongwe. It is Vice. It is Vice.
Chiwenga.
I don't know.
Chiwenga,
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, the former military general who now doubles as the vice president. I don't know if he doubles, but he is the former military general who was very key to that coup. But I don't see him talking about that, because he will be exposing himself, and the region may in fact get its spine for once and tell him, no, you can't do that. And perhaps that's even why he has sent Chiwenga, because Chiwenga can then hide behind the fact that he's actually on paper not the president. And then not be able and be, skate around answering the difficult questions. But we hope that the region can do exactly what the party has said through our party spokesperson, Mahere, which is that what's happening in the region is a clear humanitarian crisis, and the region should see it as a humanitarian crisis whose roots are really in bad governance, an illegitimate government, illegitimate president, and a crisis of leadership in Zimbabwe. So I hope that we can begin to see that moving forward. I know that they're talking about the crisis in Mozambique as well, but the crisis in Mozambique is evidence, in fact, of the problems that beset our region when the region doesn't take particular steps to make sure that human beings and citizens of SADC are able to live fuller lives, enjoying freedoms of speech, association, and being able to elect a government of their choice.
Thank you very much, Sibanda, for that. If I may just jump in. Just going back to 2017, when Robert Mugabe was ousted, you were very critical of the coup, if I may put it that way. But you were also, at the time, you said you were also very concerned of what was going to happen after Mugabe, because looking at it, the last 5 to 10 years, Mugabe was in power, but he was not really the person that was ruling the country. So my question to you now is that Mugabe's regime, or during Mugabe's regime, and Mnangagwa's regime, are you saying it's still the same people or the same cruelty that was going on during Mr. Mugabe's regime is the same thing that is going on?
Great question, Mr. Bailo. How do you remember those things, my brother? Sharp memory.
Right, I'm looking forward to the response.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Bailo, for that question. I think that you summarized very well my attitude towards the coup as it happened in 2018, and also my analysis of where the country would go, which was that I thought that the country would get into a worse situation, and guess what? That's where we are now. And people here regularly say, look, there was a lot of madness in Mugabe's government right through the years. But the difference between Mugabe's madness is that that madness has some kind of formula. What we have now, my brother and Chiwe, my sister, there is no formula in how things are done in this country now. Even the corruption, it's off the roof. People in this country live off mining, so there will be small-scale mining done by individuals, small groups of people that are just trying to make a living. And there's people who come in and claim to be from some family, powerful family. They will just come in and say, oh, well, you look like you're having a lot of good gold here, and now the mine belongs to us, and by the way, the gold that you've already mined belongs to us. They will come in and take your farms. Classic case right now, one of our friends, Malunga, Sipusam Malunga, bought a farm, has put in his crops. They're doing very well, tomatoes, vegetables and so forth. And you know what? A cabinet minister from ZANU-PF, Mr. Mpofu, just walks in and says, these things now belong to me. So it's a place that has no laws and no rules, and you know what's going to happen. Rules apply only to those that are not in power, to the rest of us. And those that are in ZANU-PF and in very powerful positions within ZANU-PF get to have whatever they want, whenever they want it. So the madness that we have now is without measure and is without precedence. Okay. So you can see, my brother, it's hard to actually list all the illegalities and difficult circumstances that we find ourselves in as a country.
Many critics will argue that's what the opposition does, always launching offensive on the government. But also the MDC have been very popular in being critical of the ZANU-PF, and also been very interested in foreign powers or Western powers to get involved. Even recently, where your president, Nelson Chamisa, calling on foreign countries to get involved with the affairs of Zimbabwe. As an African, how do you feel, or how will you feel to see other countries or other foreign countries, like as in the Western powers, to come and sort out your own problems? Why do you sort it out amicably or on the table? Why will you want people to get interfere with your own with your own affairs? That's not patriotic, is it?
My brother, let me just get to the bottom of that. As we speak, African governments are gathered in the Longwe and they're talking about Mozambique, and the people, almost 99% of the people that are there are not Mozambicans. Would you agree with that? And if they're not Mozambicans, why are they talking about Mozambique? That's not patriotic, is it?
Yeah, but the African Union are Africans. But in your case here, you're calling on countries like the United States.
And Zimbabweans are humans. Zimbabweans are humanoids. The suffering of a human being anywhere on earth is my concern. The death of a child anywhere on earth is my concern. The shooting of civilians on the streets of any city in the world is my concern.
But why don't you call on SADC or the African Union? Why the West?
Who called on the West? Who called on humanity? Who called on the West? Who? That's just the propaganda that ZANU-PF sells. President Chamisa has not spoken to Western leaders in a very long time. I think it's very unfair to say that he has. And even if he did, I think it would be very wrong to assume that there's something so special about ZANU-PF that it must be allowed to continue to destroy and kill innocent human beings, and nobody should even talk about it. As a matter of fact, when we are accused of, or when anybody is accused of opposing ZANU-PF, look, let us look at the facts. Never mind what we say. Is the Zimbabwean economy bad? Can Zimbabweans afford or live, are Zimbabweans living at below $1 per day? Yes, that is what the MDC Alliance is talking about. That is what President Chamisa is talking about. Is Makomborero Aruzivishe a political prisoner who's been in prison for a year for no reason, for asking the government to arrest a minister who had stolen money for COVID? Yes, that is true. Do we have political prisoners in Zimbabwe? Yes, that is true. That is incorrect. Can Zimbabweans peacefully protest? They can't. That is wrong. And that is what the MDC is saying. Has Zambia been able to have an election since the beginning of the COVID crisis? Yes. Has South Africa had an election since the beginning of the COVID crisis? Yes. Were all political parties in South Africa allowed to campaign? Yes. Did Malawi have an election during the COVID crisis? Yes. Were all the political parties able to campaign? Yes. Did Zimbabwe have an election during the COVID crisis? No. All political
one will argue the effect of COVID is different in many countries. Probably in Zimbabwe, you had more COVID cases compared to the countries that you are comparing here. And also the infrastructure, the health infrastructure in those countries might be different to Zimbabwe.
That is not true, my brother. It's just not true in terms of figures. Zimbabwe has some of the lowest. Zimbabwe has some of the lowest figures in the world of COVID cases. And besides, my brother, South Africa tops the charts in terms of COVID cases, including being, in some instances, the source of some of the variants that that the world was heavily concerned about. So clearly, if there was a country that shouldn't have had elections, it was another country, but not Zimbabwe. So those are the facts, my brother. Anything else is just clever chicanery. You can tell that Zimbabweans are being treated differently.
So one thing that stands out for me in terms of what the challenge, the further challenges that Zimbabwe probably faces at present is that historically, the militaries in any country, especially within the SADC, historically the military is usually lurking lurking somewhere in the shadows politically. Whereas since the ousting of President Mugabe, we have seen that the military is quite prominent in Zimbabwe, with them openly involved in all aspects of Zimbabwe's politics. Also, that's linked to the military itself having financial interests in entangled with the ZANU-PF. So when talking about the mining sector, you're talking about health, telecommunications. There's all that's intertwined. How does the MDC alliance, or any opposition leader for that matter, opposition party, see itself emerging out of this without being faced with similar confrontations with the military forces?
Thank you, Chiwa. Great question and great analysis of the problems here and elsewhere, and of the theoretical political environment right there as it links with the practical. Of course, the military in this country is very entrenched. It is everywhere. In fact, to this day, police officers do not mount roadblocks on their own. They are themselves policed by the military. That's the extent to which we have become a quasi-military state. So you have that situation where we have to deal with armed people on our streets. But let me say to you that with the young people and with President Chamisa really taking interest in the future of this country, it's very clear that this one is not a contest that the military can win. It can never win against all the people in any country in the world, no matter how big their guns are, and no matter how many bullets they have in their stores, the munitions won't work, because the people will come out in their millions and vote for President Chamisa, and they will have a way to prove that they're voting for President Chamisa, and that the military will be well advised. And the Zimbabwean military is for the largest part, very, very professional in terms of rank and file. And we know that in this election that's upcoming, if things go as the president is planning, President Chamisa, if we carry on with his CCC agenda, the Citizens Convergence for Change agenda, it's going to bring us results that would convince the rank and file in armed forces that it is always better to side with the people than to side with the despotic dictator who is in fact at the end of his life. Most of our army generals are mid-ages and they have a lot of life to live in Zimbabwe. As Zimbabwe becomes prosperous, and yet the people that send them to do these things are themselves in their twilight ages. They're really looking at the other side and have much less to worry about when democracy comes, because it might not find them while they're still with us on earth. But the young ones, the military generals, have got futures to worry about. Look at what happened in Zambia when President HH remembered very well those officers that carried out their duties with due diligence and due care and promoted them accordingly, but also accorded justice and fairness to those that had abused the law while they were taking instructions from the former President Lungu.
Thank you very much for that. So let's come back to the MDC again, just a little bit in terms of yourself or the MDC party in general, your leader. We do know in African politics, it's very difficult to get in. Once you are in, it's easy to maintain power. But for the first time to get into power, it's very difficult. So my question to you, many will argue Nelson Chamisa is intelligent, is young, energetic, but yet probably also many people will also say he lacks that experience. Do you think Nelson Chamisa has got what it takes to rule a country like Zimbabwe, where for the past 30 years, you know how the political system has been?
Thank you, Mr. Bailo, for affording me a great opportunity to say what most Zimbabweans already know about President Chamisa. President Chamisa is a former government minister in this country. And when he ran his ministry, it was the best ministry in the government of Zimbabwe. It was the first ministry to bring down the prices of products that were coming directly out of his ministerial line to such an extent that you end up with people buying two things, you know, what you do in the UK, where you can buy two for the price of one. Buying things for $1, you know, 2 phones for $1. That was President Chamisa doing that. His management of the IT ministry, the technology ministry was very exemplary. And President Chamisa has been a member of parliament, massive experience in government at a national level. Has been a member of parliament since the year 2000 and, you know, 2001, I think. And in that time, his constituency was one of the best managed, even in terms of the finances. You know, they get what you call the constituency development funds, and President Chamisa managed his funds so well that every penny was accounted for, and that his constituency developed much faster and much better than many others. And that even central government, ZANU-PF ministers were interested in going into his constituency because it was the exemplar, it was the example of what you have to do in order to develop a constituency with very, very limited resources. So President Chamisa has a lot of good stories behind him as evidence of experience and innovation. He did not just do things the way we always do them. He did not just do what Zimbabwean MPs always do. He did what was appropriate and necessary given his context and circumstances. And I think that's why you find out that as you were referring to 2023 and the MDC Alliance, President Chamisa's policies, what you see is a clear vision of how to develop a country. And there are examples set for us in the past, how Europe was built immediately after the Second World War, and we're as ravished as Europe was after the Second World War. And President Chamisa is saying, let's go for that infrastructure. The beauty of building an infrastructure is that you create jobs while you're also building capacity for your country to perform better and to produce new products and to build its industries and its industry and commerce. So you have an experienced minister here who has proven that you know he can do the job.
Okay, and just to finish off, I'll come back again to the first question that my colleague Chiwe asked you earlier, you know, some about MDC Alliance or MDC team, which the infighting that is going on in the party, which you've put that blame into the ruling party, the ZANU-PF, saying it's them that is propagating or that is not allowing you for you to do what you mean to do or for you to be who you are. So my question to you, when Nelson Chamisa became the president of MDC Alliance, when Morgan Tsvangirai died, during the term he was elected as president of, or he was appointed, I can't remember whether he was elected or appointed. Yourself, you were very critical of the appointment of Nelson Chamisa, the way the due process was done. Do you think there will be lots of Zimbabweans out there who still have that in mind, the way Nelson Chamisa was kind of elected or chosen to be the president of the party, where some people will still not be happy towards the party and people will still be having that in mind come 2023?
Mr. Bailo, you characterized that correctly, that there were two options that the president could take or that the party could take in terms of appointing the successor to President Tsvangirai when he died. And that the legal procedure was that the National Council would immediately sit and make a decision on who becomes the president. And that the National Council could sit as a Congress in between the Congresses if the president had passed on or could no longer perform his duties. And that was the case. And that is what, in fact, took place. That is how President Chamisa was elected by the National Council of the MDC, MDCT. Now, what I had suggested, which was also legal, but which was not the necessary step, was that because there were people who were contesting and were hell-bent on destroying the party, and we now know, because they were paid by ZANU-PF, that what I said was that President Chamisa was popular enough to go to Congress immediately instead of waiting for Congress and coming in as elected by the National Council. I suggested that he could go in for Congress and that way he would silence all the voices that were trying to silence him and to silence the MDC, as it were. And I think that with the benefit of hindsight, it was correct that President Chamisa took the initial position as required by the MDC constitution, because it would have been difficult to find a person who would then preside over that Congress because of the chicanery that was going on and was being sponsored by ZANU-PF. So I think
you were very critical at the time, and many will argue now you are very quiet on it, or you are now in favor of it because you are the spokesperson for Mr. Chamisa.
You can go back to our clips. You can go back to our clips. I said at the time, Mr. President Chamisa, who was vice president then, was popular enough to win not just in the National Council, but to win at any Congress. And that it would have been more beautiful. The aesthetics of the process would have been great if the president had in fact, or if the party, not the president, because it wasn't him making the decisions. Remember, he was not in charge of the system and is not in charge of the system that would decide whether it's a Congress or it's a National Council. But I suggested that those who were managing that system could in fact have called for a National Congress. But President Chamisa was right, because between you and I, we were not thinking about the elections in 2018 that were coming in within 6 months. That would come in June. What was then happening was that we would have elections coming in immediately and would need to be organized very, very, very quickly. So that was the challenge that we were not looking at, and the party was already looking at that.
Thank you very much for that analysis, and as always, we really appreciate your time. And that was Dr. Nkululeko Sibanda joining us from Harare, and he is the presidential spokesperson for Nelson Chamisa, the MDC Alliance Party. Thank you very much, Dr. Sibanda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailo, and thank you, Chiwa Chihana, for having me today. I hope to have more conversations with yourselves soon.
We're looking forward to having you again. Until next time, to you, our viewers, thank you very much for your time.